This is another episode of the podcast of Bad Opinions, episode 3. My name is Andy, and that is the main man, Josh. We all know him, we all love him. We got some really good topics to run down for you tonight, but first, we got a little bit of housekeeping to do. See, I'm sure if you've watched the previous episodes, you'll notice that this all looks a lot different. We're not just two dudes in some boxes anymore. And that's because one of our wonderful community members, Megan Miller, has volunteered her time and effort to do all of this for us for free because we're clueless when it comes to graphic design. So when you see her in the comments, give her a thank you. Let her know how awesome that was over. We also have one other thing. See, this week we got some technical upgrades too. There's a group of streamers that I follow that if you'd like to give them a watch, you can find them at twitch.tv/hangtime. They have gifted us with a code to get on a website called Throne. What Throne is it allows content creators to put their needs, whether it be tech or just, a new mouse or a game that they really need, on an Amazon wish list type thing. And community members can buy those things for them and have them shipped directly to them. Now, we're not telling you this because we want you guys to go buy us anything. We're telling you this because the community that I'm in has already bought us a lot of things. There'll be more things on the way. I'm the one that's got all the best stuff so far, but we just wanted to give them a shout out and thank them for the just wonderful opportunity they gave us. So now that we got that out of the way,
I just want to say we're really appreciative of Megan for doing all of it. We honestly have no idea. We send the email, then we're like, did you get the email? And she's like, no, I didn't get the email. And then it's, let me check and make sure I sent the right email. Andy called me one night and he was like, answer your phone. We got the opportunity that we needed, our opportunity of a lifetime. And Andy's told me about this group. I've seen the group a little bit. I think I might actually follow him on Twitch. I just don't use Twitch very often, but it seems like one of the most wholesome communities. Seems like a community that really likes to give back. And it's an awesome group, awesome place, it seems like.
Yeah, I'm being real appreciative. It's like the most inclusive place on the internet. Like, even some of the stuff we do say to each other here doesn't necessarily fly there. And just a little bit of transparency. I'm actually recording on my own laptop for the first episode now because one of the sweet older members of this streaming community, she's a 55-year-old woman who just for some reason loves watching these lovable idiots on the internet do dumb stuff. And she actually bought the laptop that I'm recording on. So big shout out to you, Mama Sue. Now,
that's awesome.
Now that that's out of the way, we got this there Tournament of Champions to talk about. And I do have a little bit of comeuppance since I called it round one.
Round one. The receipts are there.
Fucking Steve, man.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I was really curious as to what was going to take precedence, whether people were going to start going with food or start going with the characters they like. And, as bad as our opinions are, we have some good hearts. And I don't think you can beat a wholesome character, especially somebody like Steve.
It's really hard. And if you did beat him, you'd need a stick.
Yep.
He took down some powerhouse. He took down the MCU. He took down all of our nostalgia for the 90s, except for his little portion of it.
He even took down dragons.
He took down fucking dragons, dude. The giant sky snakes that breathe fire, amongst other things? Quite possibly the greatest fictional invention of all time. Well, Steve did it by just jumping on real dragons, like the Komodo type. And I have no doubt that if real dragons were, the size of a house, he would have jumped on them motherfuckers too.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure there's some weird fan fiction out there of Steve Irwin with dragons, but I'd like to read it as long as it's not too horny.
So there's this website called Reddit. And if you haven't been there, proceed with caution, but what you're looking for definitely exists. There was also Tumblr, but I think that might be a little too horny for you.
Well, yeah. That was Tumblr's motto for a while.
Dude, I ran across Tumblr as nothing more than the shit that made it to Facebook. And really? I probably read 100 Tumblr posts before I realized what the fuck a Tumblr was.
Yeah. I had friends that had Tumblr back when it was cool. Like I always associate Tumblr with like the weird hipster and like mustaches being cool phase everybody went through, just because that was the time when I got introduced to
Okay, now,
Tumblr.
first of all, don't you say everybody. The stage you went through.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It hit me
Uh,
hard. Still haven't left.
so we got, Steve, obviously the wholesome train won it, but the MCU in this.
Yeah. So MCU made the finals. It's MCU versus Steve Irwin in the finals. And I commented as soon as I posted that I would be very happy with MCU winning. It's not that I'm not happy with Steve winning. I think Steve is a very deserving winner and representative of the mood of the group. It represents what the group stands for. I love the fact that we went with a wholesome celebrity. It really makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's a definite dub for the group.
yeah,
But
for sure. It's a good sign. But MCU holds a special place. And this group started in 2019. I think this group might have started 2 months after Endgame came out. And
full transparency, I was in prison when Endgame came out, and I think I had not been out too long when we started the group. So,
oh wow, I didn't realize
oh
that.
yeah,
Maybe I didn't make
I
it
had a
home.
guard ruin Endgame for me,
Oh my
spoiled the whole
gosh.
damn thing. He started walking through the tier, talking about, man, when those of y'all that are getting out get to see it, that big purple motherfucker just went through with snapping, folks.
but but yeah, so you think about what Avengers meant, and you know the champion that made it was MCU as a movie franchise. But our fifth poll we ever did was best MCU character. So from the start of the group, I feel like MCU has been the biggest cultural piece that we have. And it's had me thinking a lot about how we don't have those things anymore. Like they're gone. Like everybody listens to their own music now. Nobody watches the same TV shows. Like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people watch Stranger Things, but it's probably going to be like 10% of the population.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched one episode and just couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you never, MCU was the last thing that you can walk up and have a conversation with somebody without having to say, hey, have you seen this? Or are you into this?
And
And
I'll tell you another great thing the MCU did is that everybody knew who Spider-Man was. Everybody knew who Batman or knows who Batman is, Superman. The MCU itself, it's always had its bigger people, but the X-Men were the biggest Marvel people
right.
for the longest time. Iron Man was a C tier comic book character.
It is wild.
And because of his movies, which sparked the entire MCU, he's now the arguably top 3 most known superhero of all time.
Yeah, I'd definitely say. Like I would say you have a top 4 now. You have Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman. Like I would say that's the 4 most recognizable.
You have a Mount Rushmore now instead of a top
exactly.
3.
And like it's pretty impressive because like you said, Iron Man, I want to say IGN did a list of like top 50 comic book heroes in like 2008. And I think Iron Man was like in the 40s.
You want to know what I remember Iron Man from all the way back from the fucking 90s? And it's not the cartoon. And it's also probably not, well, I guess Marvel vs. Capcom 2 would have been the big MVC cabinet at the roller skating rink. That's what I remember Iron Man from as a kid. When you hit the big ass ultra cannon, hyper beam, that's the only thing I remember him from.
Wow.
Before the first movie.
Yeah, that definitely takes you back. I mean, like MCU it's just like, I mean, it's still going. I feel like the TV shows might have just been a little too much for people. Like I feel behind. I know Multiverse of Madness is about to come out.
It's already
I'm going to be excited. Is it? Oh, today's Friday.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Circling back to the hang time thing, that's a running joke I've seen people pay $500 for. One of the guys cannot go see the movie for I think another 16 days because people were just dropping $500 donations to add a day.
Oh my gosh.
He couldn't go see it.
That's wild.
But yeah, MCU is such a spectacle, but I do think that we've reached the peak of it.
Yeah, and I don't even think I think we've reached the point where we're getting, I wouldn't say too much because I'm glad that it's all out there. There's no such thing as too much. Nothing has to explain itself.
Yeah.
But we're reaching the point where it's too much to be the cultural thing it is. Because
it's tribalism is going to start sitting in now.
Exactly. Yeah. And when we had a movie a year, 2 movies a year, it was easy for everybody to go, everybody that doesn't care about comics, May and November, they would go see a movie. Now it's, hey, did you watch that 10 episodes? Well, there's 10 more now. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah, and you have a 3-hour movie you need to go watch, and then it's got 2 spinoffs coming out next summer that you're gonna have to catch too.
yep. And now there's probably 20 to 25 main characters in the MCU.
That really follows the comic book phenomenon
Exactly.
though
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I'm not saying they're handling it wrong by any means. I think it's
Now I
perfect.
will say Marvel did it to themselves by fluffing that Disney money and being like, we're just gonna pump it all out
Oh
right
yeah.
now.
Oh yeah. I think part of it is Disney Plus came out and they didn't have it didn't land like they wanted it to at first, and they were like, "Hey, Star Wars, Marvel, we ain't paying you billions of dollars for nothing. Give
Oh
us
yeah.
give us something."
I saw something on this yesterday, and this kind of going. It's about Disney Plus, but it's The Mandalorian killed the MCU because it was such a another cultural moment where you had people like, all
Yeah,
right,
that's
we're gonna
true.
get Disney Plus just to find out what's up with this Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Well, now you got the Marvel ones coming out, and they're good. I mean, the little bit I have seen of like Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not capturing people the same
No.
way that Baby Yoda did, and it's a marketing thing. You can put Scarlet Witch on 10,000 t-shirts, but people just aren't gonna buy
Right.
it. But Baby Yoda's the cutest fucking thing since sliced bread.
So, an argument I had literally 10 years ago, before the first Avengers movie, I was of the opinion that Jon Favreau, who directed the first Iron Man and later directed Mandalorian,
Yeah.
should be in charge of the Avengers as they went forward. Obviously, Kevin Feige, I can never remember how to pronounce his name.
Feige, but whatever.
Yeah, obviously, he's running the story. He's actually in charge. But the director that's setting the aesthetic should have been Jon Favreau. Always thought so. They went with Joss Whedon because he was more spacey. He had the witty humor from Firefly and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, he had the humor they were going for, which is why that first Avengers movie works. He did that well, but there was like, you can only go so far with that. You start to get a core audience, you start to get a base audience, but not expand.
Yeah.
What Jon Favreau did with Mandalorian was take the base audience that was Star Wars fans 40 years after it came out and expand it back into the mainstream. I would bet, even though like the Star Wars movies made a ton of money, I doubt anybody has opinions of Finn or Poe. But you ask them about Baby Yoda, they can talk about it. Like, my kids can talk about Baby Yoda.
We have had this, me and you talked about this, I think last week or early this week. I have never sat down and start to finish watched an entire.
Yeah, you told me that.
I have watched Mando season 1 and 2 3 fucking times each. And it's just because it was introduced to me in a cultural phenomenon that was
right.
relevant to our age.
Right.
And it's the same thing that happened with the MCU 10 years ago, 12
Exactly.
years ago.
That first Iron Man movie is good. Like, it's a great story, but it's also, it hooks you in a way that nothing does anymore. Everything now is sequels and reboots, and that first Iron Man movie had to sell you on Iron Man. And The Mandalorian had to sell you on Baby Yoda. There are very few directors.
One episode and the first 30 minutes of that Iron Man movie to get you in there.
Yep, exactly. And like, I think, J.J. Abrams, I don't mean to derail this conversation, but
God, here we go.
J.J. Abrams directed Lost, Alias, the Star Trek movies, and the Star Wars episode 7 and 9. So I don't know how you feel about Lost. I thought Lost season 1 was incredible, but J.J. Abrams is an expert at building a world, but not fleshing anything out, which is why the first Star Trek is great. The second one lacks, which is why the new Star Wars sequel or trilogy kind of falls apart. He introduces too much.
That kind of have something to do with, was it Feige or who did 2? Or not 2, but
it was Rian Johnson.
Or Johnson. So didn't Johnson come in and just retcon the fuck out of everything that Abrams had just retconned?
So, I mean, I think 8 is the best Star Wars movie. That's a very controversial opinion. But after 40 years of Star Wars, you needed somebody to come in and take the mechanics, the tropes, the archetypes, and turn them on their head. And I know you haven't seen it, so I don't want to get too much into it.
I mean, I know the basics of, okay, I know what happens in those three movies, but I cannot tell you what happened when, except for like, was it Last Jedi or
The
what's
last
Jedi?
one's Rise of Skywalker.
Or Rise of Skywalker. I know about the little ending with,
yeah. But to me, you're right. They shouldn't have had J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson doing different things because that didn't work. But to me, if J.J. Abrams had done the whole trilogy, he would have ran into the same problem because he builds the world so broad and then tries to start wrapping it up. He builds a ship so like magnificent and large and grand that he could never land it. But it's an amazing ship. It's what he did with Lost. It's what he did with Star Trek.
Shield and duck under the arrows and shit. But this is why I don't fucking like Tolkien.
That makes sense. That actually makes a ton of sense.
Massive picture with not a goddamn thing in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It would take somebody like Peter Jackson to land a Abrams ship. It would. And Peter Jackson was so meticulous in making sure he had every detail correct. That's why Lord of the Rings works. The Lord of the Rings books, yeah, I loved them the first time I read them. I could not make it through them a second time. I could not. I know that people love Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is fantastic, but it's not for the everyman. And I'm a lot closer to the everyman.
I can respect Tolkien for what he did. We wouldn't have all of the amazing fantasy and stuff that you like and I like today without him.
Right.
But goddamn, that man just cannot give me substance in the middle of a story.
Right. Can't wrap it up.
Paint me the prettiest picture. And this is, again, going to sound so much worse than I really intended, but I've been to prison where I had nothing to do but read all day long. And I went back and reread books that I had already read because I cannot make it through the first 500 pages of any Tolkien book.
Yeah.
And I have tried.
Yeah. And they're fantastic, but and there's so much out there right now. I don't have it in me to give all of it to Tolkien.
And see, that's what's going to happen with Marvel now, I think. I still think we're going to get some great movies. I think Multiverse of Madness is probably dope.
Yeah.
Fucking No Way Home hit in all of the spots that I needed it to hit.
Yeah, and I don't want to underrate.
More of that, unless we're not going to have another Infinity Saga. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't want to underrate Disney's ability to change with the times and figure things out, because they've done it and they can do it some more. I mean, I'm sure that they've got something up their sleeve that's going to work, and if it doesn't work, they're still going to try it. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's Disney. You don't fuck with the mouse for a reason, and it's not just his lawyers. Now, before we turn this into Nerdcast with Andy and Josh, go ahead and reel it back to the tournament. I got 90s dominance up next on my agenda here.
So,
boy, our age really showed in this group.
So 9 of the final 16 of the Sweet 16 were from the 90s, be it Forrest Gump, Jurassic Park, Rugrats, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Green Mile. You can go through the list. 9 of the final 16 were things that happened in the 90s.
And not all of them were even total concepts or total items either. One of them was John Coffey's death, right?
Yep. John Coffey's death as a tearjerker. And that made it to the Sweet 16. I want to say it also lost to Steve Irwin.
I'm almost sure you're right, which is one of those oof, I know why that happened, but damn.
Yeah.
But
I the Green Mile.
There's a lot that we can and we will say about the 90s rocking this here real quick, but it definitely does boil down to the fact that we are all, for the most part, 24 to 38 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, you got a pissed off baby over there.
Yeah, she just woke up hungry. Let me go check on her real quick.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, you talk about the stuff we grew up with and how we hold it special, and I think that's part of the reason Steve Irwin won. I'm not saying he's not deserving, but he was our childhood as well.
And he ticks off all the boxes, man.
He's nostalgic. He fits our heart. He was beloved. He's hard to root against. The one box,
a lot of the things that we all we know about animals today, we know because we watched him dive on one in '99.
Yeah, you're not right. We didn't have the internet 99 we might have had the internet, but it was easier to watch Steve Irwin than Google.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
if you were trying to watch something on the internet in '99, you better start downloading it on Monday and call your friends over on Friday.
right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those 30-year downloads we had are done now.
I
But
would hope. I mean, I think I saw a couple that was like 762 years.
that's amazing. But the one box that Steve Irwin didn't check off that's super big in our group that I'm a little surprised by is food, because the group has traditionally loved anything food related. They have been
Not
our
just
biggest
love, we
polls.
go to war over food in this
Our
group.
biggest battles have been over food. And here we are. And food was the big underperformer. Chocolate chip cookie made a run. That was it.
I don't even know if you
Cheesecake.
really count that as like just straight food. I think that was just a lot of people were like hungry that day.
I thought that was going to be every one of them. I thought cheesecake and chocolate cake and pineapple. I thought that, all the fast food options we've had, all the
Now,
restaurants.
this might also be a testament to the fact that we're all looking back, realizing we've been eating like shit for the past 3 years, and
Oh
maybe
yeah,
that was not the right choice.
that's actually a really good point. Like we're starting to get past the pandemic eating.
Yeah, like mashed potatoes. I love mashed potatoes, and that was our favorite potato option,
Potato,
right?
favorite way to
Uh,
consume potato.
I
Maybe my
love
favorite
mashed
turn that we've done.
potatoes. How the fuck did mashed potatoes beat French fries or baked potatoes? Now that I'm thinking about
Yep.
it, and I'll tell you how. Since we voted on the shit when we were all living off Idaho and mashed potatoes that you make in the microwave.
Yeah, that one was it was also that one also came right at Thanksgiving, and I think that might have played into it.
Oh yeah, that definitely is a. You be running some of these polls at just some opportune times for some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
my guy.
I do. I try to keep it seasonal.
I mean, I
Um,
wish there was more to say about food. I mean, I feel like it should, and there's always more to say about food. I mean, come on. But in this context, it on paper was an extremely strong contender
right.
with the history of the group.
I sincerely thought cheesecake and Reese's peanut butter cups was going to be the finals.
Okay, I wouldn't have gone that far. I thought Reese's was going to go really, really far, but not finals.
I, I I really thought it had a chance. I really thought all the food was what was going to make a run.
It would have been dope to have an entirely food Final Four or Final Eight. All right, so that's the tournament of champions, guys. We voted with our hearts. We voted with our nostalgia. We voted with everything we love about entertainment and human beings as a whole. And we ended up with the guy who taught us everything we know about snakes we don't want to be within 15 feet of. So hats off to you, Steve. You deserve it.
Crikey, what a champion.
Oh, mate. All right, next on the agenda here. All right, now I probably should have asked this question a few days ago when you started posting these. Is this supposed to be specifically sitcom moms or is it just TV?
Okay,
moms?
no. It is TV moms. The dad's
Okay,
one was
you wrote
sitcoms.
sitcom on my
Yeah.
agenda here, and I'm
I've
like,
been messing that up
my
lately.
strong runner here just got eliminated if it's sitcom.
No, it's TV moms,
All right,
which is why it's a little bit bigger.
I'm calling Dark Horse not gonna win. In fact, she may already be out because I haven't really paid attention in the last couple days. But Fiona is the best damn mom on TV. And I tell you why she's the best mom on TV. She checks everything you want to see off of TV. She is wholesome most of the time. She goes above and beyond for the kids, puts them above herself. You see her have personal growth and development. You see her fuck up a lot. I like seeing a little bit of human in my entertainment, which is also why I like the MCU better than DC, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Fiona gets tested and put in so many human ways, especially people like me that grew up a little bit on the rougher side of the tracks. Man, it's heart wrenching sometimes to see some of the shit that you personally experienced. But it's one of the things that helped make me understand representation a little bit better is like, and this is a story a lot of us know all too well of a 17, 18-year-old kid getting 3, 4, 5 kids they never asked for lumped on them, and she went from sister to mom like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think you really hit on something. Like, I think a lot of people, well, the first round's posted now, and I think a lot of people are voting for the quote unquote perfect mom, the flawless mom. But to me, that's not a mom. That's not the best mother, in my opinion. I want the mom that's been through it, that knows they're not a perfect person, but does what they have to as a mom. But to me, that's what's inspirational. And I think that I definitely think Fiona could make a run, but the group, not to
Oh, it's never
downplay
going
the
to
group,
happen.
they love
Never.
their warm and fuzzy feelings. They love their comfort moms.
Let's see, if I had to pick one of those, and I don't know if you put her in here, Mrs. House of Pain, the mom from House of Pain.
Mm-mm.
Dude, that is one of my favorite TV moms of all time because she fits all the happy, wholesome, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
90s sitcoms moms just don't do it for me, man, for the most part. And most of them are just annoying and like they try to put them off as a Stepford wife with a little bit of
Yeah.
attitude. And it's just like, all right, if I've
Right.
seen one of you, I've seen all of you.
Yep, I agree with you. I think so usually when I post older options, I separate it by eras. If I post older options, it usually kind of gets ignored. They're not as interesting anymore.
None of
We
it's
can only
fresh on our brain anymore either.
exactly that too, and we can't really contextualize, what those shows mean now. But with the moms, like it's different because like I think the biggest example is Edith Bunker from All in the Family, which is a problematic show with a racist, sexist, whatever male lead. But Edith, you just feel so sad for. You feel like she deserves so much better. And even though she was a doormat her entire show, you feel for her and you want to vote for her.
See, that's my criteria there. I need that emotional connection.
Yep. And I think there's a lot of the moms from back then that you can really connect to. Even like, Carol Brady, who I think is probably the front runner for that old one. She was a, wholesome, lovey-dovey, comfort feeling mom, but she was also in a blended family that dealt with some stuff every now and then.
A lot of these moms shows, their concept of their show is also going to be kind of depend on how we vote because a show like the Brady's, where it was one of the first times in TV where you started seeing real life issues get addressed. Well, that's going to hit a lot harder than Tool Time.
Yeah.
I love Jill Taylor, but that's a thing.
Yep. And I'm excited to see how the animated characters do because there's a lot of animated characters in it. I mean, I think Linda Belcher from Bob's Burger can make a run just because so many people love her.
Yeah, she's gonna make a run because that's a lot of people's comfort show in this group.
Oh yeah, that's a big show. I think the most voted on show from the most recent round right now is Peggy Hill versus Dexter's mom.
Oh, so okay, because like King of Hill is objectively one of the best animated cartoons, if 100%. Not the best animated cartoon from the 90s, early 2000s era.
Absolutely.
Peggy's kind of annoying. Dexter's mom doesn't generally have the hugest role.
But you know what? She does have the hugest.
Yeah. There's a meme I saw today where you literally see her riding a bike and Dexter is sitting on the dump truck as his seat.
Have you seen the poll I posted with it?
Uh-uh.
She's doing the dishes and she's carrying some in one hand and the other is just on that wagon. It's amazing.
Is it like spun around backwards, just sitting on?
It's like a side view of her, and like she's got dishes in front of her and behind her.
Oh, the dishes are on the. Oh,
yeah, the dishes are behind her.
Perfect.
Are propped up.
See, shit like that's also what's going to give people a run in our group, though, because if you can make the right meme about it, we all laugh and go, "Ha ha!" Voting that way.
So, I included Johnny Bravo's mom, who also has that wagon. And my comment on it was that Sigmund Freud would believe that Johnny Bravo belonged in the Pixar universe. And I thought that was very witty.
That might be top 5 funniest things I've heard all day. And I was at a T-ball game today, so I've seen some kids say some stupid shit.
T-ball is one of the most chaotic events that you can attend in person.
I'm just going to humble Dad flex real quick.
That's awesome.
T-ball bonus, Dad.
That is awesome.
Hell yeah. Whole family got matching shirts.
That's really cool.
Showed up looking like the whitest fucking thing I've ever been a part of. But still guess cool. Who did that? The mom. And that's why this tournament is going to be a lot of fun because moms do mean a lot to it. Well, I'm going to shut the fuck up about that. To most of y'all, moms mean a lot. I guess we're really gonna have to see where this one pans out. This will be a lot
Yeah.
more discussion once we get into the latter end, or even to have a winner by the time we come back
Yeah.
for these.
Well, with these previews, we're really just bringing up, what we think is going to hold. Is it going to be nostalgia? Is it going to be the cartoon moms? Is it going to be the funny moms? Is it going to be the one that challenged norms? I'm trying to think. There's one mom in here who's like, pushing the boundary at the time. And I was thinking about that. And I was like, that could make a run, but I think they're not doing very well.
Could it have been like, wait, is it an older mom or is it like a?
I think it was from our childhood, but I don't remember who at the moment. I do think Vivian Banks could make a serious run.
Got to make a good run. Well, I don't know how people are feeling about old Willie Boy right now. That might skew that a little bit.
I'm hoping they don't hold that against.
That would be nice.
Yeah, because another one that I think can make a run is Claire Huxtable.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and that's another one that's got a lead role.
Questionable partner.
I'm gonna derail this real quick because I think it is time to move into our battle portion of there's a new segment of the podcast, but in kind of wild things and Will Smith and all being brought up. I don't really want to talk about Will Smith in general because that just was too much.
That was a lot. That was the most derailed the page has ever gotten.
Yeah, but since it's happened, you've had T.I. start shit with a female comedian on stage. Because if you don't know this, and you probably don't, because I didn't until I saw it on this podcast, T.I. is trying to be a comedian now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's doing small club shows and shit. And then night before, or a couple nights ago, a dude tackled Dave Chappelle on stage.
I saw
it. If you're at the Laugh Factory or even fucking Stand Up Live or something like that, you can almost, if I can't whoop every ass in this room, I should probably watch what I say because somebody might make it to me on this stage. And again, not to talk about Will, but I can understand how Will made it onto that stage. He's Will fucking Smith. And
yeah.
Him and Chris Rock are supposed to be friends, right? But some dude I can't even remember the name of the theater that Chappelle was.
Yeah, I can't remember the name
but
of it.
It's a big, like,
it's a large stage.
How the fuck did this dude make it on the stage? And did Will Smith set a fucking precedent that we were watching play out like right now?
So I guess I gotta eat my crow because when the whole Will Smith thing happened, there was a lot of people talking about the precedents it was set. And I didn't think it would be precedents because the circumstances were so abnormal. It wasn't a comedy show. It wasn't supposed to be a roast. Nobody had signed up for it. It felt like a different thing. But it does seem like things are getting a little bit more violent, especially for the people that have been pushing boundaries, telling the jokes like they're telling them. So, I mean, maybe I am wrong. Maybe it will become a thing that has to be addressed.
I think, and I think what happened with the Chappelle incident is kind of what's going to at least balance addressing it a little bit. And it's part of why I think it's a little bit Chris Rock's fault for allowing the precedent to be set. Because I just got the shit smacked out of me by Will Smith. He ain't said a fucking word about it. Just let it.
No, you're absolutely right. I heard recently he said he won't be discussing it on his new tour at all, and he hasn't said anything.
Yeah, he said the hour's already written, so I'm not going to change it up.
Which, I mean, I guess I respect. I mean, he doesn't have any reason to address it really because it hasn't affected him at all. Like.
No, I mean he's goated as it is, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. He's made.
The reason he did have it is to stop what has happened now, and I think, and I'll get to my point with this. I was watching Andrew Schultz on Flagrant 2, and they were talking about it. When psychos, because that's what other than Smith, but when psychos see people do something crazy and they get away with it and they get a lot of attention from it, that makes them go, if they can do it, I can do it.
Right.
Now, what might put a curve to this is, have you seen the picture of that motherfucker that attacked Chappelle? Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't mean to be like crass about it, but they kind of made an example of him.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to do this to performers, comedians in general, but you're not going to do this to performers. And this is why nobody does it to wrestlers for real, because
that's what I was about to say.
2 or 3 times, and people got lumped up real fucking bad, found out shit wasn't quite so fake, and it just stopped happening.
Yeah, I mean, it happened recently to Seth Rollins, maybe.
Yeah.
He was coming down the entrance and somebody ran from the outside. But I mean, even that guy
Yeah.
got put in a headlock. Like,
And that, I promise you, that wasn't no work headlock. They was squeezing that motherfucker's head off his shoulders.
yeah, I saw it's on TikTok. I see a bunch of videos for wrestlers and wrestler stories, and the one where the guy tried to attack Stone Cold and
Oh, and
Triple H had
Triple
to
H
take him
just,
off.
he just starts shelling on that dude.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway,
yeah,
like,
that was my whole point of bringing it up and derailing. Is just like, I said a precedent was going to be set. Lots of people did, and it was.
Yeah.
And it's kind of Chris Rock's fault for it's not his fault, but
no,
he allowed it to go because who gives a fuck about not being able to come to the Grammys for 10 years?
right.
If I was Chris Rock, I'd have sued that motherfucker for $100 million.
Yeah. And I
If
think, I
Johnny
mean,
can sue for 50, bitch, you just slapped me in front of 1 billion people on live TV. I'm taking 100.
yeah. And I mean, when it first happened, I was super, I thought Chris Rock was in the wrong too. I thought, it was an inappropriate joke and an inappropriate time. I didn't see a slap as a big deal. I guess I failed to understand. I failed to understand how people would elevate, how people would take this on. And if that's what's going to happen, then obviously my take was wrong and insensitive. But
I mean, me and you had about the same take, and we had the take I think most husbands, long-term boyfriends, and fathers have. And I saw someone say this, and I think I know where the quote's at, but I don't want to misquote it. Actually, I do know it was Bolin from Hang Time. His wife said, but he laughed at the joke. And Bolin said, you know what the last thing I would do before I slap the fuck out of somebody for making a joke about you I don't like is?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Is that right? No, I'm right in being wrong. But now that you look back, it's like, dude, you just embarrassed that man in front of 1 billion fucking people.
Yeah.
And you're 8 inches and 80 pounds bigger than him.
Right.
Chris Rock knew he couldn't whoop your ass at fucking, come on.
Yeah, that wasn't a fair fight. And
but
the thing is about the whole situation.
Let's not make this about that situation.
Right. That was a very complex situation with a lot of things, but this one aspect, like you said, like, does this set the precedence? It's a scary moment, If it does, like, where do we go from here? Like, what needs to change going forward?
Are you gonna make motherfuckers buckle into the front seat of your goddamn comedy show?
I mean, for somebody like Chappelle, he can up security. He can always have much more security standing around him. Yeah.
But stand up live ain't gonna do that.
Yeah.
The brand new comic that's on his first tour, he can't do that. And what happens when it's 2 of them and they start jumping his ass on stage where anybody can get up there? Yeah, all right. Back on track. Sorry, had to have my one major derail there. We got a new segment for you guys, and I guess we don't really have a name for it yet, but it's just going to be what me and Josh do at like 3 o'clock in the morning anyways, when none of y'all are awake arguing the battleground. We're going to start picking a topic, and Josh is going to take one side. I'm going to take another side. This one, we're going to kind of stick with, some of the themes we've had in this podcast, but maybe we'll start taking suggestions from the group, things like that. When we pull guests in, maybe we'll have them as a judge to see, who they think really won the argument. But I think this might probably be one of our longer form segments probably here going on now. Our last in talk. So tonight we're going to do Marvel, not just MCU, but Marvel versus DC. And since it was my idea, I'm cheating and taking Marvel. So, Josh, tell me why you're going to lose this argument.
I know I'm going to lose this argument because we just spent 10 minutes earlier talking about why Marvel is the cultural touchstone of the moment and why Marvel is a bigger deal. Like right now, Marvel owns right now, and that's the hardest thing to overcome.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to have this conversation in terms of what people want from comic books, stories, fiction in general. Right now, it's hard to have that conversation and come to the conclusion that DC is winning the moment because DC isn't. But I think historically, you could make an argument for DC because DC's moments in the past have been bigger. You go back to, as far back as the golden age of Superman and the, truth, justice, and love of America. You go back to the detective comics Batman, when Batman was a super big deal in a non-comic, fighting your uh fighting the enemy way. It was more of the detective, like read this cool little story type way. And then you go into the Joker, and you've talked about the three different forms of the Joker that have come on, and how the Joker is, I would say, inarguably the best villain in comic books.
I mean, I'm on the Marvel side here, and I got to agree with that. At least he's the most fun.
Yeah, yeah. I think in 100 years, if we're talking about a comic book character, if we're talking about a comic book villain, it'll be the Joker. He'll be the one that holds up. Um, Really, the best argument I have is that, you know, in today's world, we don't want the story. We don't want the story of looking into somebody. We want to see the outside story and put ourselves onto it. It's not fun to sit and think about our stuff. We're all, repressed. We're all in need of mental health. Like, it's not fun to talk about Batman's problems and Superman's dealing with empathy when we can't even get therapy ourselves. So we're just all at a time where, like, those stories aren't as popular, but there is a place for those stories. There is a discussion about, Superman's greatest enemy. I always say it's not kryptonite. His weakness isn't kryptonite. It's empathy. His biggest villain isn't Lex Luthor. It's the trolley problem. It's his complete inability to not be the hero. That's why it's called the Superman complex. It's impossible for Superman to reason out him not being enough, not being able to save everybody. There's a story, and I can't remember what it is. I think it's All-Star Superman, where Superman's on the way to save the city from Lex Luthor, and he hears a child crying on a farm as he's passing by. And it's just one child, and he's going to save a whole city. But he still can't stop himself from going to save that one child because of who he is.
He's
And,
also just a giant fucking Boy Scout.
yeah, exactly. But the thing is, and probably your biggest argument is going to be that in that comic, he manages to save both, because of course he does, because he always does. But then you go to Batman and you talk about, all of these characters and all their different, you know, we get so much of Batman. He is a billionaire, you know, warrior, whatever you want to say about Batman, but you still always know the troubles that he's dealing with, because the mental toll of, the grief of losing his parents, the dichotomy of being this brutal man who doesn't want to be brutal, the idea of, justice. And then you go even further and you get into something like Watchmen, which I think is probably DC's best creation. It's not a long story, but the DC comic.
I'm gonna come back to remind me to circle back to Watchmen.
Okay. But Watchmen is such a brilliant story about the time. You go back to the 80s. Or I think it might have came out in 79, but it kind of hits that 80s era of like greed, and you get into this story of who watches the Watchmen, and you get into this story of, Dr. Manhattan sitting on the planet alone because he has nothing left to challenge him. And it really, like, it captures Cold War America better than any story. When I want to say it was Time released their 100 greatest novels of the 20th century, Watchmen was on there, because even though it's a graphic novel, it's that incredible. It's that important. It had a movie. The TV show is amazing, and I love the changes the TV show made to the story. But
I do need to see the TV show one day.
It's really good. They changed the comic book a little bit, but I think they changed it for the better. I think, you shouldn't have to tell the same story every time. I don't want to ruin Watchmen, but there's a little bit of a mystery throughout it. And it's kind of like the mystery is kind of how they make their big message. But anyway, the DC comics were more so the story of the 20th century, because characters like Batman, characters like Superman, characters like the Watchmen, even Green Lantern and the Flash and the different, variations of it. It tells a better story than almost anything, honestly. The problem is they're still trying to. They're still not understanding. DC really found its moment in the postmodern America or postmodernism. Once that hit, the anti-heroes, the villain that you love, the challenging authority on everything, Batman is better than, the police or whatever. Like, that was a big moment, and like it held on to that for so long. But we already know that message now. we understand what postmodernism offered, and it hasn't updated the story. You think about Avengers, even the Civil War, the Sokovia Accords. That's a cool way to update that. Like,
Yeah, because that's shit
because
we're having to justify now.
exactly. And not only that, but in the comic books, it was kind of like they didn't make a clear statement on who was in the right. They kind of tried to play it right down the middle. But in the movie, they made it seem more like, or maybe I got it backwards. I'm trying to remember the movie.
The movie doesn't, as far as I remember, it doesn't make you as the viewer so much pick who is right. It's more of a like, do you
Yeah, exactly.
kind of want to be more on the side of safe but hamstringed, or are you on the side of we have to be something separate?
Right. You're right. It's the movie doesn't make you pick a side. It lets you interpret it how you want, which is how you have to tell stories now, because we live in the age of social media. We live in the age of everybody being able to type their opinions all the time. You've got to let people decide what they think. And I think in the comic books, they made it sound like Iron Man was right and Captain America was wrong. If I'm not mistaken, that was the angle of the story.
I'm almost sure you are right.
So in the movie, they got away from that. That's what DC's never figured out how to do. They've never had the story where are we sure Batman's right is an actual story, not just some side plot before Batman punches, the mental illness out of a homeless person.
I don't want to cut you off, but you actually did just kind of perfectly transition my argument back with a lot of these things. They are nuanced things here, but I think everything you said that was really good about DC in the 80s, 70s, Marvel has refined all of those things and found better ways to tweak and present them to you. DC gives you gods pretending to be humans. Even the one who's a motherfucking human, Batman, is a goddamn god. If he can't do it with his far above peak human abilities, he'll just fucking buy it. And if he can't buy it on Earth, he knows a Kryptonian who knows a Kryptonian. Tony Stark is the same billionaire, genius, philanthropist. He's just way fucking smarter. And he uses his money not to bite off Lucius Fox's work. He becomes a god amongst himself. And the whole time you watch him struggle with crippling alcoholism in a way that's not your parents were fucking shot in an alley when you were 9 years old and now you're an emo kid. You see the fun, not, I don't want to say fun side of alcoholism, but you're presented with the duality of Tony's a fucking drunk, but you love him because he's a fun drunk most of the time.
Exactly. You see
every single counterpart where you can go, this person is this person from DC to Marvel, take their stick. Marvel did it just a little bit more relatable, just a little bit better. And my entire thing has always been, I don't like that DC characters are gods. I like that Marvel characters are relatable humans who later found out they were gods for the most part.
So that's impossible to argue with. My only thing is I think DC stories are meant more. DC stories are meant to be about the internal struggle of somebody, and what's going on the outside is the details to that. And it's so little of the details that it's easier just to make them gods and make sure they get through it than to risk. You get what I'm saying? Like they're trying to.
DC relies upon movie magic all the way down to its comic books. I mean, it's movie magic in comic books. And it's the same thing wrestling does. DC doesn't explain itself because it doesn't have to, because it's DC.
Yeah.
When you see something that makes no logical sense in wrestling, you go, it's fucking wrestling. Of course that happened.
DC is a lot. They're just disinterested in plot to an extent. Like the story of Superman is never about what happened. And I mean, at this point in time, that's what's going to sell is what Marvel, because it matters to Marvel that Spider-Man is always Spider-Man being Spider-Man. It matters to Marvel that Spider-Man is always, even in the Civil War, like Spider-Man was the hero of the streets. He was the hero of the neighborhood. They never made him more than that. And like you talk about Batman versus Iron Man, but really, Spider-Man started off with such an advantage over Iron Man, was the biggest character Marvel had, and they never nerfed him like that.
No, they'd have
And
to.
they didn't have to, exactly. But
His
Marvel,
nerf was built in.
yeah,
They're very well written. The worst Marvel character is generally speaking going to be better than the more popular DC character.
right. So as we've talked, I've started to realize something. One of the reasons that I think DC might be struggling at the moment is because anime kind of stole their corner. Because like
Yeah,
something like One Punch Man, it's a better version of a DC story than DC has told in years.
yeah, because I don't have to deal with all the extra DC bullshit. I just get to
Exactly.
see Superman beat the fuck out of everything with one punch.
Exactly. But you still understand, like, One Punch Man is a very DC story in that you always know what's going to happen. It's never
Yeah,
going to be in question. But the character, what the character's going through, and the details is what matters.
yeah.
And
With a
yeah,
Marvel story, even when you do know what's going to happen, at the end of Infinity War, there's not a single person that walked out of that theater and went, "Well, I guess all of them are just gone."
yeah,
You knew what was going to happen, but you still cared to see how they came back.
right. Because you knew that DC, you knew that Marvel, you had enough faith in Avengers to know that it wasn't just going to be, Captain Marvel shows up and destroys Thanos. It wasn't going to be, Scarlet Witch does Scarlet Witch things and it's over. But that's what DC would have been.
Yeah,
Now, like, I think that Scarlet Witch would be a better, the MCU version of Scarlet Witch. Obviously, I know the comic book version of Scarlet Witch is beloved, but the MCU version of Scarlet Witch would do better in a DC top story
yeah,
because there's so much that you need with her character development, understanding her.
yeah. She is a very good comic book character. She is,
Yeah,
for me,
exactly.
anyways. She, especially because there's so many. They're like, especially with the MCU, they've almost split up her canons because she has two different timeline canons where
Mm-hmm.
she's the child of Romani in one, and she's Magneto's adopted child in
Right.
another. And so it's hard to fit. And they didn't. They this is one character I do think Marvel did drop the ball with on the silver screen is fucking Quicksilver. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to do with their two backstories, and they just sacrificed him to try and make Wanda beloved.
Right. See, and it's why, like, a lot of people, have always wanted MCU to include Wolverine. I don't know what they do with Wolverine because
MCU
Wolverine
is
doesn't.
beyond the scope of most of the X-Men at this point. Phoenix Force, like Jean Grey, is about the only X-Men
Yeah,
that I would want to see in the scope of a lot. Well,
that's
we
true.
don't know because of this new phase. There's a lot of shit that we haven't seen yet, so it could circle back. But
Yeah,
Wolverine would have been out of place in Endgame.
but so I think a lot about what DC needs because it's clear that what the formula DC's got isn't working. I was a huge DC fan most of my life. Grew up on Batman the animated series. The Dark Knight, I think, is the one of the best movies ever made, and it's my favorite movie.
I won't say it's my favorite, but I will say it's one of the best superhero movies ever made.
No, I sincerely think it's one. But anyway, getting away from that, it just hasn't worked. Like I didn't even see Batman versus Superman,
Me either.
and like I only watched Suicide Squad because it was on somewhere.
I was bored, and I like Will Smith,
Yeah,
and I
but
like I can't remember her name right this second, but the actress who played Harley.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, Margot Robbie. I like
Yeah,
her, and I like. Well, that's the only reason.
yeah, and
I
like
like. I like DC movies that people say fucking suck. To be honest with you, so everybody hated Suicide Squad. I
right.
probably watched it 5 times.
So I really like the first Wonder Woman. I think one of the problems that DC has right now that Marvel doesn't is when you get somebody like a Will Smith or a Ben Affleck or a not quite Jason Momoa yet, but Joaquin Phoenix. You're making movies with actors that have more pull than you
Yeah.
because if Will Smith says change the script, Warner Brothers has no choice. If
Well, they do now.
Oh yeah, they do now. It's a different power dynamic, but
Well, yeah, no, back then, if he didn't want to do the line or he thought the scene would look better, it's what he thought. He's
but
worth more equity than this entire movie.
this is an older story, but in like 2011, 2012, there was always stories about Robert Downey Jr. in a contract dispute, Chris Hemsworth being ready to walk away from Marvel, Mark Ruffalo. Ed Norton did walk away.
Yeah.
And it's because Marvel has Disney, and there's a lot of things that the House of Mouse just runs things different. It's a different power pool, and I really think DC needs a corporation that has I don't want to say the experience, because they're all experienced, but they have the pull, they have the financial incentives, they have they need a company that can say, okay, we're going to do DC our way. If it fails, we won't feel it financially.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
They need not only a company that can and will do that, they need a company that we as the consumer are going to trust, because after the last 10 years, if you ask any halfway decent comic book movie fan, they're going to tell you that they do not give a fuck about the next DC movie coming out.
Yeah.
If they happen to catch it on FX in 10 years on TV, if FX and cable TV is still fucking around in 10 years, they might stick around through the commercials to watch it. But I mean, I keep hearing wonderful things about the new Robert Pattinson Batman, and I'm not even making an effort to pirate that shit.
It was really good. It was very it was maybe the slowest paced movie I've ever seen. It is 3 hours, and that movie had no business being longer than an hour 40. Like, they take their time. They choose
That's
scenery.
another thing that DC's
DC
really bad
loves.
with. They love to take their time, and
Because they're
with a
still
movie
making
like
90s movies.
Joker, that works.
Mm-hmm.
When I need to see Batman versus Superman, I do not want them to stop and have a mother moment in the middle of the fight.
It's the same thing I'm saying. There's nobody telling Zack Snyder, or I don't remember who directed the new Batman movie. There's no one telling Robert Pattinson, hey, this ain't going to fly. We're not putting this movie out because it's not right.
It's going to look good to us, boss. You got
like it. Disney was like, yeah, Russo brothers, we'll pay you whatever to shoot this movie, but you're just holding the camera. Here's your story. Here's your script. Also go hold the camera over there.
I think that does transfer all the way back to the beginnings of comic books with DC and Marvel, though, too. Especially since, Stan Lee's been like the figurehead of Marvel. Like, you're not fucking with his characters or the characters that he borrowed from Jack.
I can't remember his name.
God damn, it's
Sigma?
Jack something.
It's not Jack Sigma, is it?
No. Somebody tell us in the comments, and I'm going to feel like an idiot because I know the goddamn name.
Yeah, I should know it too.
But those two folks, yes, you can write.
That's a really good point.
My character, but you're going to do it the way I want them to do it. There have been so many different hands in every single pot of every single DC character, and none of them have ever given a fuck about continuity.
Exactly. I just said that I like the Dark Knight movies, and they're my favorite movies. Christopher Nolan could not care less about Batman. He wasn't making a Batman movie. He was making a Gotham movie.
Yeah.
He was making like the Dark Knight is a story about chaos. It is not a story about Batman or the Joker or Two-Face. It is a story about chaos.
Chaos and its effects on people.
Exactly.
He just happened to pick really, really good set pieces in the Joker and Batman.
And not to get too down the, Christopher Nolan rabbit hole. He's my favorite director. I mean, I'm a, middle, my 30-something white man. Obviously, Christopher Nolan's my favorite director. But that's what he does with characters in general. They're set pieces. He moves characters around to fit his story, but he doesn't tell stories about the characters, which is why Batman worked perfect, because you don't need to tell a story about Batman. You don't need to tell a story about the Joker.
We all know who Batman
exactly.
is. And maybe that's another reason why I'll tend to typically fall into Marvel, is because they just always assume you know who this person is from the second you see him on the screen. To this day, I still don't exactly know where the little fucking dude who activates Winter Soldier.
Helmut Zemo?
Yeah, Zemo. I still don't exactly remember where Zemo got like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have no idea.
It's just the sneaky bastard's here, and he's part of the fucking Red Skull's people.
That's a good point. But anyway, I think with DC, when you have the right director, when you have somebody, as good as Nolan, you have Christian Bale, whatever, or Heath Ledger playing the Joker, it's going to work. But when you give it to, Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck, it's not going to work. But in my opinion, the best thing that could happen to DC is if tomorrow Jeff Bezos or Apple woke up and said, hey, WB, here's however many $1 billion. We want the DC property.
I mean, I'd be cool with them doing that because Warner Brothers owns Death Battle now, so that means Death Battle's just real fucking interesting. Well, they own the company that owns Rooster Teeth.
Okay, that's interesting.
But yeah, they actually get Warner Brothers press releases and shit like that. And there have been a couple times where WB came to them and was like, all right, so you're putting these new characters from our next thing in here. Can we have some input? And they're just like, nope, get the fuck out of our office. We do things our way.
That's pretty cool. That's still neat.
Well,
but yeah, I think Marvel has the belt right now. Like, if this was wrestling, Marvel's holding the championship belt, but I think if they retire tomorrow, DC's still the GOAT because of everything it had built up to that point. And not to downplay Marvel. I know that Spider-Man, I know that Gwen Stacy's death.
Use that in a wrestling analogy. Nobody is ever going to say that Stone Cold Steve Austin is a better technical wrestler than half the guys that are out right now. And a lot of the guys that are out right now are probably making better money than Stone Cold was back then. Stone Cold still fucks Stone Cold. And I'll still give DC its respect. I'm just saying Marvel on top right now and has been for a hot minute and probably will be for a hotter minute.
Yeah, I don't see what can change. I mean, like I said, the best thing that DC can hope for is that the Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips, those were two people that came along that said, we have an idea, we have an inspiration. Let us tell a story with your character. And it took off, but it doesn't help DC. Like it doesn't help DC to have a one-off Joker story.
No, it just helped Joaquin Phoenix, who didn't need the help in the first place.
It would take a Kevin Feige type figure taking over DC, which isn't going to happen at WB because WB still the old school movie studio. Like they, and they did the same thing with Harry Potter, which is another, like they fumbled the bag there too. They were like, how many different directors did the Harry Potter movies have? They had, I know they changed like.
They had more directors than Dumbledore's. They also have allowed themselves to let they have allowed J.K. Rowling to screw them there. They should have. We own the IP for movie properties. We do not associate with the statements or this person, and she will no longer be making any more than the base royalties that are in her contract, which will not be renewed. Because they let her nuke their fucking movie franchise.
Yeah, they did. And that's another thing. They let her have that control. We were talking about it the other day, but I was telling you, when it comes to Marvel DC, another point that I had for DC was I think the Arkham games are incredible. Like I think that they're
Spider-Man
phenomenal. And you were arguing the Spider-Man games, and you said that they use the same mechanics.
The first Arkham game is literally Spider-Man 2 in a Batman skin. Just with, a little bit different, like actual storytelling mechanics, but the beat 'em up fight style, and which is really what makes most of the Arkham games great, is its combat system.
Yeah,
that's Spider-Man 2's combat system from PS2.
See, and I had no idea.
If you want to play it better, play Spider-Man 2018 on PS4, or now Miles Morales, now that it's out.
I've heard amazing things.
But it's getting kind of late. I think we've touched on just about everything we could here. We picked two things that we could go back and forth there, but I'm not even going to say we're going to declare a winner on this one. If you got things that you want to add to either one of our arguments, then add them down in the comment, guys. Let us know. This has been the podcast of Bad Opinions. My name is Andy Locke. That's Josh. Take us out, buddy.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Make sure to vote on the TV Moms poll. Other than that, we appreciate y'all watching. We appreciate you supporting us. We're having a lot of fun. Hopefully, more episodes to come.
Oh, and one last shout out to Megan for all this awesome, graphics work, and one last shout out to Hang Time for giving us this wonderful equipment opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate it greatly.
Have a good one, guys.